Oh, good. And just, I don't know how she does it. Just came in. Figure we would.
Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to the regular scheduled Board of Education meeting. Today is Tuesday, November 22nd, and we are at the Town Hall Council Chambers. And with that, I'd like the roll call.
Thank you, Vice Chairman, Mr. Cassio. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Cassio?
Present.
Mrs. Drew?
Here.
Mrs. DeRoberts?
Here.
Mrs. Granato?
Present.
Mr. Healy?
Here.
Mr. Lacavoli?
Here.
Dr. Regan Lefebvre?
Here.
Mr. Riley?
Here.
Chairperson Carey? Absent. And Wethersfield High School Student Representative, Mr. Ryan Fazina.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. With that, can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? We'll all do it together. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I just want to say it's so nice to see all you here.
I know.
You know, we're usually by ourselves, and, you know, it's great to have a good crowd. But anyways, with that, student and staff recognition presentations. Mr. Emmett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Cassio. Good evening, everyone. This evening's staff student recognition is dedicated to one of our beloved colleagues, friends, and Wethersfield teachers, Mr. Thomas McLaughlin. Tom McLaughlin lost his battle with cancer last Friday. He has been a staunch supporter of students over the course of the past 17 years in Wethersfield. Prior to his time as science teacher at Silas Deane Middle School, Tom also worked for the Youth Services Department, and he was integral in supporting our students and children in this community for many years. It is a significant loss to this community. It is certainly a significant loss to Silas Deane Middle. We certainly send out our prayers and well wishes to Tom's sister Maura, who is part of the Silas Deane Middle School team as well. If you would all please join me for a moment of silence in honor of Mr. Thomas McLaughlin. Thank you.
Okay, with that, yes, it is sad when we lose one of our members of our family, somebody that really has had the heart of all our children, as well as the faculty that he worked with. He was a good leader, and he will be someone that everyone will miss. But the good news is that we had him for a little while, and he touched many lives. So I think that. With that, we have the approval of the minutes of our previous board meeting. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
Opposed? Abstentions? We have one? Okay, so
So
noted.
noted.
We have public comment. Public comment, please come up, state your name, your address. You have 5 minutes. Any public comment? No public comment. Communications, Mr. Emmett.
Thank you, Mr. Cassio. Good evening again, everyone. Just want to remind members of the school community that tomorrow is a minimum day. We will be beginning our Thanksgiving vacation tomorrow afternoon. The district will be closed both Thursday and Friday. I have several other items this evening just with regard to the referendum. Obviously, since our last meeting, we learned that the referendum to replace and renovate our schools in Wethersfield did not pass. As a result, I sent a letter to the state of Connecticut noting this, and at this point in time, the two projects that were sent forward with grant applications, both for the replacement of Hanmer Elementary and Highcrest Elementary, both of those applications have now been pulled, so they will not be considered for priority list status for next year. Now, with that being said, what we need to do at this point in time is to regroup and talk about what our next steps are. The reality is this: we have buildings that are old, they are tired. They're not getting any newer, and we certainly need to continue to work to address those. We recently had a Facilities and Maintenance Committee meeting. The Facilities and Maintenance Subcommittee asked that I bring together Charles Warrington from Colliers, as well as Mike Zuba from the SLAM Collaborative, to do a meeting where we talk about next steps and where we go. It is clear that this is not something that can go on the shelf. We have to continue to move forward, and we have to address the needs in our buildings. That is a must. So we'll certainly put out to the public when that Facilities and Maintenance Committee meeting is. One of the other things that we thought was critical was making sure that we have town leadership at the table with us so that we can discuss next steps. A few other issues for you, just to remind you, tomorrow night is our annual football game against Newington. The Eagles are in the playoffs, so they have secured a spot. A win tomorrow night against the Nor'easters will cement a home playoff game, which will take place next Tuesday. So best of luck to the Eagles. Again, it will be a full house there tomorrow, I'm quite certain. It is 6 o'clock tomorrow, so not the typical 7. It
Wethersfield?
is here in Wethersfield at Catone Field, 6 o'clock tomorrow evening. So hope to see everyone out. I will tell you also, with regard to our free breakfast and lunch, I continue to go out to cafeterias, and I continue to be amazed by the number of breakfasts and lunches that we are providing our students. We are now north of 900 lunches being served per day over at Wethersfield High School alone. So we're very proud to be one of the few districts in the state that will continue to allow free breakfast and lunch for all of our students for the entirety of the 22-23 school year. We will certainly be taking a look at the budget for the future, knowing that we will be likely headed back to the charging for lunch next year. If there are any ways that we can figure out a way to at least offer free breakfast, we'll certainly do so. But for the remainder of this year, just a reminder that we are offering free breakfast and lunch to all Wethersfield students. I also want to make sure that everyone knows this is not applicable to Corpus Christi and Discovery Academy. Although they are schools that are located in Wethersfield, they are not part of the Wethersfield Public Schools. So we supported them up through the end of this month through the funds that we got from the state. So Corpus Christi and Discovery Academy, those students starting in December will be charged unless those groups decide otherwise. A few other items for you this evening. You have several items for action items. We have the approval of the 23-24 and 24-25 calendars. Also this evening, we have the approval of some science curriculum, and Mrs. DeStoli is here to speak to that. And then we also have members of our leadership teams from both Silas Deane Middle School as well as Wethersfield High School, who will do a presentation on school improvement plans at the secondary level. And with that, that is communications. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving right into action items. We have a recommended motion. Bobby would like to do that, please.
I don't have it here, though. Do you have it?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, recommended motion, move that the Wethersfield Board of Education approve the 2023 to 2024 and the 2024 to 25 school year calendars as recommended by the Calendar Committee. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
No.
Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Recommended motion for the approval of the curriculum. We have a motion from someone on the committee. Mr. Healy?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I move that we approve the elementary science curriculum units, aligning our curriculum to the next generation science standards.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, if I may, real briefly, and I know Sally can also offer, this is a very comprehensive approach in our science curriculum for ages 1 through 6. We had a committee voted for it a few nights ago, and we had a very nice discussion about the way this curriculum is layered and builds on itself over the years, complements itself. We made a joke that everyone's going to know about waves really well by the end of the 6th grade. We're going to know waves up and down on the line. But it's, I think, very robust and I think meets the needs of what we have to be doing in science and STEM, and we are wholeheartedly in favor of moving forward with it. The other committee members that were there want to comment, feel free.
Any other committee members? Seeing none, we have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to reports, discussion items, announcements, and information. In your packet, you see that you have your meetings, assignments. If you can't make a meeting, please let the chair of that committee or the superintendent know, or the chair of the board. Moving right along, we have presentation of secondary school improvement plan. Mr. Emmett.
Yes, it gives me great pleasure to present to you the leadership teams from both Wethersfield High School and Silas Deane Middle School to provide you with an update on school improvement plans for middle and high school.
Good evening. My name is Christina Slayton, and I'm the Instructional Supervisor for Secondary Curriculum. This evening, we will share our school improvement plans for Silas Deane Middle School and Wethersfield High School. These plans were created by the leadership teams that you'll meet this evening. They're informed by and directly respond to the student achievement data that we shared with you last month. In each school's presentation, you'll hear our commitment to our district priorities of equity, empathy, and achievement. Likewise, you'll hear of the shared work across our schools, including a focus on rigorous, engaging, and accessible learning, multi-tiered systems of support, and restorative trauma-informed practices. We believe that through this work, we will continue to strengthen our coherence within our respective schools, across our secondary program, and throughout our district. Ultimately, this systemic coherence, driven by focused and intentional improvement efforts, will support all students in realizing Wethersfield's vision of the graduate. I'll now turn it over to our leadership teams.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tara Yesko, Principal of Silas Deane Middle School.
Siobhan O'Connor, Principal, Wethersfield High School.
Our presentation tonight is based on our integrated approach that's aligned to our work that's identified in our district strategic plan, as well as focused around our three pillars that really drive all of our work: empathy, achievement, and equity.
Also, as Dr. Slayton inferred at spoke about at her introduction, this has been a long day, I apologize. We are also aligned across into the vision of the graduate. And what I'm very excited about now that Mrs. Yesko is now official, so I think a moment of congratulations for Tara. We're very excited about the work that we can do in a 7-12 curriculum environment, so we can actually have a coherent 7-12 program for all of our students. And so we're very excited about that. And so with that, we're going to present our 7 and 8 school improvement plans. Thank you.
And tonight, the middle school does have its entire leadership team here, and we're going to kick it off with Mr. Brillo.
Thank you, everyone. Before I get started, I do want to say the whole team did decide to wear SDMS shirts, and I attempted to, but this is a gray shirt. It just doesn't say SDMS, so I'm going to have to go and just wear it over my shoulder. It won't make you look at it. It's not as fun. I am here to talk about restorative practices, though. So, the pandemic's been difficult on everyone, and there was a lot of separation of staff over those few years, and we're working a lot with restoring adult relationships, kind of making that idea that teachers can gather and meet and talk to each other about the things that are going on in the school to make that more commonplace. We've done a lot of work with Joe Brummer and with staff gathering in circles to talk about the problems and find ways to deal with them. We've got a new restorative team that's come up with a ton of ideas on how we can reconnect the building to help teachers during the day if they encounter a problem so that the students can keep getting the services they need throughout that day. And one of the things I think I'm most proud of for that team is, we started the school year, we had a restorative team, we came up with a bunch of ideas, and then we altered the schedule in the middle of the year to better meet the needs of the students. So all the plans we made didn't work anymore. and we already have new plans up and running, and that's just a really great sign of resilience in the building.
Hi, I'm Kylan Casasanta, Turquoise Team Leader. All content area teachers at Silas Deane use a program called Rethink Ed. It helps to create healthy school climates, promote a greater awareness and understanding of mental health and wellness, and provide school staff with training and instructional tools. Students take a universal screening through Rethink Ed, where they self-assess their personal, social, emotional well-being and maturity. Our support staff team has created a SMART goal for our current 8th graders based on these results. 6% rated themselves as very low, and 43% scored themselves as low. The goal is to decrease the 6% to 4% and decrease 43% to 35%. We hope our students have more confidence in their self-regulation and coping strategies so they can be successful in the high school.
Hi, good evening. Carrie Anzadeh, Social Studies teacher, Crimson Team Leader. I'm speaking about promoting a welcoming school climate. How is everybody tonight? And welcome. So Silas Deane Middle School and kind of the vision of the graduate. Empathy is really super important in our school systems, and so kind of helping to instill this skill as far as like lifelong learning skill within our children of caring for other people, understanding how they feel, and really legitimately taking it the next step and actually acting on being better human beings in this world. I'm proud to say that Silas Deane Middle School, we started a pilot program a couple years ago, Kindness Club, that kind of came out as kind of out of the pandemic of being kind of isolated and kids needing someone to reach out and kind of connect with them, and then taking it the next level the next year when we were actually back in school but fully masked. And the Crimson team started off. But kind of just helping kids to understand that caring for other people is so vital in life and in our community, and just lifelong of just giving back to our community. So I'm proud to say that Silas Deane Middle School this past beginning of the school year, we are currently in a kindness challenge at our school. We have posters around our building encouraging students to commit real acts of kindness, not just considerate things of like hold the door open, pick up your pencil, but real acts of kindness of caring for other people. And we're hoping that they take this skill throughout their lifetime and actually learn that just being a good person and at the end of the day, really caring for other people and showing that kindness each and every day is what we really hope to have them become like full citizens when they leave us. So we also have our diversity club, which is also encouraging people to really kind of accept and welcome other people despite differences in cultural backgrounds and religion and holidays and whatever. But just that we all, as human beings, have that overall compassion, just want to be cared about and loved, so, and have that understanding. So we're hoping that the kids are going to take that through their lifetime. So that's the positive, welcoming community we're trying to create at both the high school and the middle school level. So just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Megan Dossie. I'm a language arts teacher on the Green team and their team leader. At Silas Deane Middle School, excuse me, rigorous tasks are developmentally responsive, challenging, empowering, and equitable. Rigorous tasks engage students in work that does not have one right answer, that involves critical thinking, that encourages stepping outside of one's comfort zone, and requires students to explore their own ideas. At the building level, we are strengthening executive functioning skills by teaching students how to organize, to plan and prioritize their work, to be flexible in their thinking, to access that working memory, and to self-monitor throughout the week. Staff supports students in goal setting in the classroom by engaging students and encouraging them to develop goals of their own that are reasonable and meaningful, that recognize potential obstacles and build in strategies to address those obstacles, to provide opportunities for self-monitoring, to adjust, and to reflect after they've met those goals.
In addition, we have created a new team called the NGSS, Multi-Tiered System of Supports.
as you can see. And it's just that, the name says it all. We have created a team where we discuss how we can better help students who are struggling in the classroom. And as such, we've identified different levels where team teachers meet to discuss students and students that may need some help in the classroom to improve and to be more successful. So we have like a tier 1, tier 2, and so forth built in to help identify where kids may need support. And as you can see, there are different areas for that: social emotional learning, academic learning, and attendance and so forth. Because there are many challenges for students to be successful, and we want to address as many as we possibly can. Once we've identified a student, we create a plan as the team teachers and set goals, discuss it with the student, keep information gathered, and check in after several weeks to see how's that plan working. If it's successful, then the system kind of lets that student go, and we see how they do on their own. If that goal that we've set is not being met or it's not helping the student, we have to alter and rediscuss what we can do to help the student be more successful. So there are multiple levels, as it indicates, multiple areas of concern, all to foster success in our students. I'm sorry, Cynthia Hunt. I am the Indigo team leader and 8th grade social studies teacher.
Hi, I'm Kristen Fortuna. I'm the Magenta team language arts teacher and the team leader. And I'm here to discuss our staff focus of engaging students in learning. And our school-wide teacher practice focus area centers around engaging students in learning. Our staff is implementing lessons that include time for reflection, in addition to honing in on students' enthusiasm, interests, critical thinking, and problem solving. Lessons that allow time for student reflection, encourage students to take ownership of their own learning by setting goals and investing the time and effort it takes for meaningful growth.
Hi, my name is Lisa Mandeville. I am the math teacher on the Orange team, and I'm also its team leader. Basically, at Deane, we use data compiled from standardized tests like the SBAC and the STAR. The data is then broken down into smaller subgroups. The disaggregated data from the latest SBAC reveals disparities in the test scores of different learners, different groups, including race, non-high needs versus high needs, which are basically English learners, students with disabilities, and students who are eligible for free or reduced lunch. And finally, racial groups. Because of the disparity, we recognize that this is an area that we as a district need to grow, and thus have implemented targeted interventions to instruction. For example, each academic content area meets weekly and plans small group instruction to support student growth within our own classrooms. In addition, we've adopted a multi-tiered system of supports model, which we've already heard earlier, but it's very similar to the former SRBI process, and includes the classroom teachers, as was mentioned earlier, interventionists, and other support staff, but is not limited to just that. We have guidance that we include our school psychologists and our social workers as well. All of us working together as a school community to improve student success. Thank you.
What's this? I missed it. Did you hear what you said it was?
Hi, my name is Peter Wick. I'm the assistant principal at Silas Deane Middle School. Following up with what Ms. Mandeville just said, the next bullet focuses on the administrative and district equity training work. So that bullet centers on the work that we have been doing as part of the district initiative for Push for Equity. We are going to, myself and Ms. Jesko, as well as our equity team, our building-based equity team, have been going to equity trainings with CREC, the State Education Research Center, and in those works, in those professional developments, we have been developing our own equity lenses, which allow us to kind of look at our own identities and figure out how those identities impact our approach to education. Then we bring those lenses back to our schools and we analyze our operations, all aspects of our community with that equity lens to make sure that it is inclusive of all students. So, for example, making sure that our curriculum is culturally responsive and offers plenty of opportunities for all students to connect to it, making sure that our behavior systems are reflective of equity and equitable practices within that. And as far as our students go, making sure that they have platforms to express their concerns when it comes to their identity safeties. And so part of that ties in with the circle work that we've also been doing with Joe Brummer.
Before I continue, I just want to say thank you to my leadership team for being here tonight and supporting our work. They've made this transition extremely easy for me to really hit the ground running. We've kind of taken on a theme this year of it's our time to refresh. It's our time to refresh who we are and where we want to go. And with that, we are going to be looking at our building schedule. As you know, we recently did some minor tweaks to our current schedule by changing the order of the periods, extending passing time by a minute to 4 minutes total for each passing time, and adding an additional lunch wave in order to create a better lunch environment for our students. We've really seen some great positive results from just this small change. Teachers get to see students at different times of the day. Some of our students hurry to school and actually arrive early because they're really excited to get to that UA class, especially those that really like going to PE or band. They used to be coming in maybe at 7:55, and now I notice it's 7:45 when they're coming through because they're just really excited to get started. We also get to have our students enjoy lunch and have real conversations with about less than 100 less students in the cafeteria. So we really want to take this opportunity to see how we can continue to refresh our schedule and audit what's working and what we still need to do in order to meet the needs of our building, as well as to provide more opportunities for our students in order to prepare them for that next level at the high school, but also for their post-secondary choice as well. We have a committee of about 10 volunteers to explore different scheduling options in order to find what is going to work for us and what is going to work for our students, and to make this a really enjoyable SDMS line experience for them. The other part that we're going to be doing, as Siobhan mentioned, we really want to partner with the high school in order to help make that transition from Silas Deane to the high school a really smooth and successful one. We really want to develop those partnerships to expand on that student experience, and we love to connect with various groups to strengthen our community and to strengthen that transition. So, for example, we'd really like to connect the Gender and Sexuality Alliance. We'd like to have opportunities for Eagle Crew members to come and peer tutor, and we'd love to have student restorative groups that work together to build and strengthen the culture and climate of both our buildings. With this connection, we can provide our students with great possibilities, but also strengthening our Wethersfield community as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the high school folks.
Sure.
I didn't realize I was going first. Tyler Webb, assistant principal at the high school. So I am going to speak about trauma-informed restorative practices. That is something that I think, in light of coming back from what, as a society, many deem as a traumatic experience of being ripped away from all of our friends and families for a better part of a year, isolating at home, and especially our students who spent a year and a half sometimes in front of the screen while they were learning. Trauma-informed restorative practices are really a very poignant, and it's something that I think is very much needed. Joe Brummer, who was mentioned by SDMS, is a trainer in trauma-informed restorative practices, with quite a unique story himself. And really what it is learning about the brain and learning about how people act when they are stressed, how people act when they've had experiences that were hard for them, and how they then learn from those experiences moving forward. And so as educators, trauma-informed restorative practices in and of itself, I think, moves beyond the academic and moves into more of the whole child and becoming a positive member of adult society. So if anybody wants to know any more about it, look up people like Joe Brummer, Gabor Mate, Bruce Perry wrote a book. All of them really speak to this idea that there is a lot behind brain science in terms of how children can learn and what environment they need to learn. And we're trying to create that environment at the high school.
Good evening, Cindy Bryan, School Counselor, Wethersfield High School, Department Liaison. It's nice to see you all again. Tonight I'm going to talk very briefly about the Wellness Center and the school counseling reorganization, because I was here 2 weeks ago to provide information with Mrs. Kramer and Mrs. Conoscente. So basically the school counseling department looked to reorganize with the help of Mrs. O'Connor to figure out how to support our students that were struggling. And within doing that, we decided that Mrs. Conoscente would become an intensive counselor with a caseload of about 80 to 100 students, and the other counselors would absorb her caseload, and we have about 210-ish students per other counselor. And the students are in the Wellness Center are able to show up, take a minute of break or something. Kind of goes along with the trauma-informed restorative practices. So if they need to recollect, regulate, go back to class, that's what the Wellness Center is there to help them do. And as the rest of the school counselors, we continue to work with the students in the classroom and individually to support them with their social, emotional, academic, and career explorations and growth to help them be ready to go once they graduate from high school and help them develop into the healthy adults that we want them to be. The next person to speak will be Mr. Palazzo and I believe Mrs. Friel.
Good evening. My name is Chris Palazzo, business teacher at Wethersfield High School, business department liaison along with family consumer science and tech ed.
And I'm Julie Friel, special education teacher and department liaison.
And we're here to talk to you today about our We Connect program. The purpose of We Connect is for students to have connections with adults in the building who they may not have as a teacher, so they can build more relationships with more adults throughout the building so they know more of us, we can learn from them, we can have conversations, we get to know what's going on in the school when we talk to the students. We have curriculum that goes along with it, with the We Connect, that leads us into the conversations that we're looking to have with the students to really get a feel for the school. What's also nice about it is provides us the opportunity for community building through different cooperative activities, such as one recently we had a seasonal themed door decorating competition, where like my door right now, if you walk by, I have a bunch of little turkeys sitting around a Thanksgiving table, and it has my We Connect students' faces on the turkeys. And when you walk down the hall, it's really nice to see a nice welcoming school climate that We Connect has allowed us to really have.
And we also have 3 specialized We Connect groups, and they are students that did not attain the credit to be promoted to the next grade level. So we have a small group of retained freshmen, retained sophomore, and retained juniors, and they're with staff members that are very relationship-based. We still follow the curriculum with the students. However, it's a little extra check-in, a little extra TLC to keep them on the track to attain those credits and then be promoted to the next grade level.
Hello again, Siobhan O'Connor, principal of Wethersfield High School. One of the things when I took over last year that we really very quickly recognized was the need for student voice and using students as a resource. They're our untapped resource. We have 1,150 students who have amazing talents and abilities, and sometimes we complain about resources, but sometimes they're right in front of us. And so we have gone about creating some pilot programs here at the high school to really foster their sense of leadership and ownership of the building. Because at the end of the day, we've all graduated high school. This is their high school experience, and we want them to have a voice and really provide some great services to their own students. And so we did that 2 different ways. The first way was First Day the Eagles Way, which many of you either physically heard because you live close to the high school and you heard the music, or you've heard about. It was a great day of just showing students that they can have fun at high school too. We went out and we played kickball, and we were on fire trucks. Who knew high schoolers really would still like the fire truck? We did face painting. We just had 2 hours of time to reconnect. and really foster those relationships that we don't necessarily get to do in a school environment because we have classes and we have lunch and then we go somewhere else. But this was just one of those days to say, you know what, we're Eagles and this is what we're going to do and we're going to have fun together and kind of start the year off in a really positive way. And so that was all organized by students, led by 2 teachers, Steph McKenna and Andrea Leichner, but really it was students who led all of those activities, designed all of the activities, arranged all the vendors, did all of the purchasing. So that was really our first kind of foray into student leadership, and it went off. I will say I was behind the scenes, fingers crossed that everything went well, but it was wonderful. It was wonderful to see our students just being able to be, and our teachers being able to be with them in a non-academic environment. We also launched something called Eagle Crew. It's in its infancy right now, but we have different leadership opportunities for students in our building to serve as student ambassadors. And student ambassadors are the ones who might lead you around if you're one of those first-year freshman parents who don't know how to navigate the building yet. They will give you tours at freshman orientation. They gave tours to our 8th grade students who came over for their orientation. Any new students in the building, our guidance counselors can reach out to student ambassadors and pair them up with someone who knows the building really well and is excited about kind of talking about all the great things that are happening at Wethersfield High School. We also have a peer tutor program that we're launching and trying to morph that into maybe teacher assistants so we can have some more support within the school system, within all of our classrooms to really allow students to get that extra help they need without also causing any budgetary requirements. So those are all resources that we have at our disposal. We also have We Connect leaders, so what Mr. Palazzo and Mrs. Friel just talked about is in all of our freshman We Connect classes, there's a senior or junior who was in that room several times over the month to provide kind of a mentorship and kind of navigate some of those difficult waters that freshmen have when they join the high school. And so all of these things are things that were budget neutral. They were resources at our disposal, and just see kids and how excited they are about all of these opportunities. And frankly, they come up to me at lunch and say, "When's the next event?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, we'll make some more events for you." But it's great to see them have that ownership of their school, because it truly is their school.
Here we go.
All right, in terms of our achievement focus this year, we believe deeply that a guaranteed, viable, and aligned curriculum lies at the heart of continuous instructional improvement. As part of our 5-year curriculum writing and revision cycle, we will train all teachers in the core tenets of curriculum development and will begin drafting curriculum in all departments this year. Further, as we grow our collective expertise in areas such as rigorous task design and universal design for learning, which you'll hear about in just a moment, we will apply this to our new curricula. Our ongoing professional learning and collaboration around curriculum will result in high-quality, equitable learning experiences for all students at Wethersfield High School.
Hi, Kim Nemick. I'm Social Studies Department Liaison. So Wethersfield High School is working to write and or revise all WHS curricula over the next 5 years and then maintain them in an ongoing 5-year cycle, as Dr. Zlayton just mentioned. The goal is to create a high-quality curricula that are intended to serve the individual needs of every student. Teachers have been collaborating with colleagues to map out and prioritize standards and to create and identify vocabulary, essential questions, assessments, instructional strategies, resources, and supports. The Social Studies Department started with our 9th grade International Studies course. When it's finished, we will have a useful, living document that guarantees our 9th graders' experiences with content knowledge and essential skills such as reading comprehension and writing. This will be followed by work to incorporate remaining standards into U.S. history, civics, and our elective courses.
My name is Dan Jensen, Math Department Liaison. We're also working in the Math Department, working on our curriculum. This year we're working on finishing up our Algebraic Foundations curriculum, Algebra 1 curriculum, and Geometry curriculum. For those of you who don't know, Algebraic Foundations is a transition for those students who are not quite ready for Algebra 1 to kind of transition them then to get ready for that. It's a co-taught class which is proving successful, and we appreciate that. We anticipate that this year we'll be completing those courses, and then following that work, we will continue to focus on the remaining mathematics courses over the next 5 years, including looking at our alignment vertically within the department. We're also working in collaborative groups to examine not only what we teach, but also how we are teaching it. Math teachers tend to be very rigid sometimes, and we're working on getting out. If I can get unrigid and flexible, we'll get there, right? But so not only what we teach and how we've always been doing it, but how can we do it differently to meet the needs of the students that we have and how they're changing, especially as we come out of remote learning and returning to the classroom. What was normal for us is not what was normal for them, so we're reflecting on how to get our students most prepared for the future.
So there's been two fundamental changes to the special education delivery model at the high school. And the first is our study skills, which is our resource model at the high school, is now focused on new learning. So because of that, we are able to award credit for their time in study skills for the first time. And the second has been the reinvention of the old alternate day program, ADP, to Bridges. And Bridges is myself, another special education teacher, and the school psychologist. And we deliver direct instruction, a more therapeutic approach to meeting our students where they're at. We offer direct instruction of the SEL curriculum, and first thing in the morning, we do our morning check-ins. And then second period is study skills, where we work on executive functioning, the transition needs of the students, and the self-advocacy skills, as well as general academic help. From there, some kids are self-contained for their academics, others are out in the mainstream, but regardless of where they're at, students can use Bridges for support to become regulated at any time of the day. So we have data on they scan on a QR code first thing in the morning, and they check in, they take their morning temperature, how they're feeling, they identify their emotions. We also have daily point sheets, which keeps track of academic and behavioral data throughout the day. And then the third one is we have check-in and check-out data. So if a student does need to access us for a coping skill, a quick break from class similar to the Wellness Center, they come to us, and we keep data as to what class they're coming from, what time of day, and the reason for accessing us. So two big changes. We've also had in 2 guest speakers, and we recently attended a ropes course over through Cornerstone at Renbrook School. So, thank you.
So similar to the Silas Deane Middle School multi-tiered system of supports, the high school also has a committee. A little bit different model than the middle school because we don't have the same team approach. We have individual people, individual teachers by different courses and things. And not having that model, we have a MTSS team that is meeting weekly. It involves all the school counselors, the school social worker, the school psychologist, and the administration, as well as our interventionists for math and for reading. And so what we will do is discuss students that may be struggling in courses to see what interventions we can put in place for them. If they're struggling academically, let's say in math, Mrs. Komnick might meet with them in a targeted intervention model where we pull them out of a study hall and they can actually get instruction to help them support and learn what they need to learn in order to be successful in their math class, and they can earn partial credit for that. We would do the same thing for reading with Mrs. Fitzgerald. So Mrs. Fitzgerald could meet with a student. The MTSS team will discuss, we'll put in a targeted intervention, monitor and track that, and then take a look and see what progress is being made. In the MTSS model, there's kind of a pyramid essentially, where you have the base, which is tier 1, and then tier 2 and tier 3. So tier 1 is really interventions pretty much with the teachers and or the school counselors for emotional or behavioral things. Tier 2 might be the Wellness Center, it might be Mrs. Fitzgerald, or it might be Mrs. Komnick to support for the academics. And then Tier 3 is much more intensive, and that's a little bit more of a model that could potentially lead to referral to special education or more intensive supports, depending on the student's needs. So our MTSS model is newer this year. We're just kind of rolling it out. Mrs. Coffey's been working very hard with Mrs. O'Connor to create forums with Mrs. Komnick and Mrs. Fitzgerald so that we can track the students. And we're looking at monitoring their progress to make sure that we are supporting them and making sure that they have the skills that they need to be successful in the high school.
Wish I could see that circle better.
Hi, good evening. I'm Kimberly Troy. I'm a bio and chem teacher at the high school, and I'm the science department liaison. Nice to see everyone. So I'm here to talk about the instructional team and UDL. I'm pleased to talk about some work that we started in the fall of 2020. A group of teachers got together to look at instructional equity in the classroom and how to promote access to high-level instruction for all students in their courses. The learning pyramid that you see on your screen has become the focus of our work as we discuss strategies for active learning and engagement. The learning pyramid was introduced to staff in February of 2022 as a follow-up to our work with UDL and providing student choice within the classroom. Teachers engaged in conversations about practice, focus on percent values on the learning pyramid, which represent the percentage of information that students retain with that strategy. We've been focusing on the bottom part of the learning pyramid with opportunities to discuss, practice doing, and teach others, because we know that it is more cognitively engaging for our students, which is something that we're also incorporating into our curriculum. Some examples of this that we've seen thus far include students using whiteboards for practice, so to solve problems and to work with vocabulary, hands-on activities in the lab, which of course we love, to improve both gross motor skills and also communication, small group discussion within and between groups to improve communication, modeling strategies to break down text and build vocab, and of course the use of visuals as often as we can, including diagrams and making models. So the instructional team continues to focus on this pyramid as we support staff within the school with curriculum, resources, modeling, and however we can to continue to build on this work. Thank you.
I like this.
So continuing on the topic of equity, this is now the third year of our equity team, which is made up and comprised of 8 members, staff members at Wethersfield High School. In the spring of last year, we partnered with CREC and a consultant from CREC who helped guide us through what's called a welcoming walkthrough assessment. A number of other schools, some of the elementary schools, have also participated. I know Highcrest recently participated as well. Mrs. Morey did that last year. And what that is really ultimately is we gathered students, parents, staff to do sort of an audit that they've created regarding what's it like to, let's say you come into the building and you know nothing about the building. Is there signage? Are there ways to understand how to get where you need to? Is there, does the building itself welcome those who are coming from the outside? And so following that, and once we got the report back, we are now tasked with trying to make some changes. So we have some ideas, and we're beginning that work to really make Wethersfield High School a place that is welcoming for all. As the equity team, we also conducted a number of book chats. We picked 4 different books related to equity. So we picked The Color of Law, which is about redlining and the history of redlining within our country, Whistling Vivaldi, which is about just different ways of learning, Grading for Equity, and then The Sum of Us. And we offered those up to our staff. We held book chats after school here through the fall, and again, an opportunity just to learn. Really, ultimately, our goal as the equity team is just to learn. We're learning about each other, we're learning and getting perspective from students, we're learning and getting perspective from parents, and it's important that we hear and know where it is that they're coming from. Lastly, as the equity team, we're doing what we can to identify allies and create systems for students to utilize when confronted with instances, where they feel somehow that they have faced racism. We then look to see this as an opportunity to learn. We have done and had circles with staff members who have in class used terms that were really offended some, and it was an opportunity for them as the teacher to acknowledge and say, I too am learning as we move forward, and this is important for me as an educator and as a person to understand how you're feeling. We've also had opportunities to work with individual students in terms of, really restoring or moving past issues individually when issues have arose. So our equity team is ultimately, again, like I said, here just so that we as a community of learners can learn from one another, not only, again, academically, but learn culturally and learn about who each of us is and where we come from, especially as diverse a high school as Wethersfield High School is. It's a place I love to work because I know that so many of the students that I meet have a different story that's unlike any other. So.
So I would be remiss as to not acknowledge my leadership team who came out here tonight and who have done amazing amounts of work in the last year and a half. So thank you publicly for all of that work that you do. I think you've also seen from our presentations how aligned we are and what our priorities are and what SDMS's priorities are. So I just feel like that's great things to come for our up and coming Eagles and your current Lions. So thank you very much for all of that support that you're giving us and helping to create great kids coming up to the high school. So that is our presentations for tonight. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer any.
Thank you very much. Board members, questions? Bobby?
Well, actually, I have 3 quick comments, and the first one is on the pandemic, and the pandemic is what put us in this mess to begin with, and I have great confidence and faith in all the things that our education system and our educators are doing to get our students out of it, because I truly believe that's the way we're going to move forward, and it's not going to happen overnight. The second one was you were talking about keeping this curriculum moving, and I love that. But also, I love to see things mature. I mean, I taught for enough years to know that we kind of got on a bandwagon every once in a few years, and nothing really matured. So I would love to see all these things, including the Wellness Center, mature throughout the system and keep those things going so we all become experts at it. And the last one, and I know we discussed this, I think, pre-COVID and during COVID, that the high school and the middle school work together, because what a great setup for the kids if they can have an easy transition from 6th grade to 7th grade and then all the way up to 12th grade in high school. So I thank you for all the work you do, for staying on top of everything through a pandemic, after a pandemic, and in this very changing world. So thank you very much.
Any other comments from board members? Jan.
The word that comes to mind is community. It's just real community building is happening, very data-driven, but also just really being so responsive to the needs that are in front of you. And I just think it's a wonderful environment that you're building for every single child. Every child needs to feel like they're supported by their community in order to do as well as they can in all areas. So I know it's a huge task, but I really appreciate it, and I think we're going to be happy with the outcomes.
Yes.
I have a quick question for the middle school, for the Rethink Ed. First, I want to say how amazing and what kind of energy you guys have. I'm super excited. My daughter went through, she's a freshman now, so she went through middle school during COVID, and I can just see the changes even with you guys presenting. I think it's going to be a really great school there. And for your Rethink Ed, the numbers in regards to the students, how they perceive themselves. How often are you going to be doing that type of testing? Is that a monthly thing? When are you going to find out how these 8th graders feel about themselves? Is that something that you do, or is that just going to be 8th grade this year, 8th grade next year? Is that going to be the comparison?
Do you want to go to the mic or answer from here?
I mean, if you're loud enough.
That self-assessment is administered to both grades 3 times a year. The reason why the support staff team chose 8th grade to focus on for this year with their SMART goal is because the number of them who rated themselves in the low and very low category was almost half of our students. So they think that that's the area that they really need to spend time with to move our kids ahead.
Thank you.
Any other board member? Yeah, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the explanations, and I apologize if I wasn't following as close as I should. I just had a quick question, had to be with the We Connect program. I forgot who made that presentation, but from what I gathered, it said that we are offering more interaction between staff, teachers, and students. outside their normal circle, meaning I assume that means they're the teachers that they obviously interact with in the course of the day and their counselors. If that's correct, how does that really work? In other words, do you put a team together and say, let's have this teacher talk to them even though there's no regular interaction, and how does that teacher carry that load of counseling? Do they have to report it? Is it putting more time on everyone's back? And I have a follow-up question about that, but did I grasp that correctly? Or sort of correctly, or maybe 20%?
It's an advisory program, so, I mean, and rather than calling it, we called it something We Connect, which is it's a half hour a week, where every student for the same for all 4 years has the same teacher, so kind of like a homeroom.
Sure.
You know how you'd have a homeroom, but this is an extended homeroom. And it's just the opportunity that they have more in-depth conversations. So there are lessons that sometimes, and we put that out there when we create our lessons, say if there are students who you have concern, let us know. If, reach out to a counselors, reach out to the wellness center. If something, like you said, like it's not something more for the teacher to carry psychologically because they're not trained to do that. But it is for them to be sort of a touch point and a connection for kids to have that's not an academic adult in their life.
And they have the ability, if they need to interact with those other teachers, with the kid or the student rather, to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I just want to make sure I understood the dynamics of it, because it sounded to me like you were, I mean, it's a great idea, but I was trying to understand the basics of it. Thank you, I appreciate it.
No problem. Yep.
Okay. Jennifer?
I have a few questions. Thank you all for this, and I'll try to make this brief because I know that some of you entered your classroom 13 hours ago. I'm curious to know what a culturally responsive curriculum looks like at SDMS as you develop that, in particular outside of social studies. I think that's probably more obvious, how to develop a social studies curriculum, which is culturally responsive, less obvious in STEM and math. Does it apply? I'm just really curious what you're thinking on those lines. I'm also just curious in general how you plan on assessing the effectiveness of the equity work, which I'm a big supporter of and I think is great. How will we know if this is working beyond, I suppose, test scores and closing the gap amongst different groups of students in terms of their achievement? And then I guess I have a third question. I usually have 3 points. I heard a little bit recently about how the elementary schools are looking at what discipline and punishment means in a restorative practices setting. And I'm curious to know what that looks like at the middle school and high school, and I see you looking like, oh, no, okay, you're good with this? Okay, good. Because this has been a concern. I mean, incidents, I think, get blown out of proportion sometimes on social media, but parents are concerned about the safety of their students and antisocial behavior as they get older and larger and more forceful, frankly, with their bodies. So how does a restorative practice environment foster good discipline in the high school, and has that changed?
Sure. So the first question, culturally responsive curriculum. I think when people think of the word culture, they think of very specific ideas of ethnicity or nationality, and that's not necessarily what culturally responsive teaching means. It means taking the individuals that are in your classroom and offering them a way to connect with the curriculum that goes beyond the standard, here are the words to memorize, here is the procedure to memorize. So for example, I have a science background. Instead of just talking about plate tectonics, let's talk about something that they might know about, or give them an opportunity to connect with it in a real way. So going on a field trip to see like Rocky Hill, going to the Dinosaur State Park and seeing the footprints and giving them a chance to connect with it in a real and authentic way, and providing experiences for them that then allow them to connect with that curriculum, as opposed to me just saying, continents move, you know what I mean? Or taking things that we know they're already connected to. And I'm not an ELA teacher, so, tell me if I'm wrong on this, but connecting with music that they're currently listening to is a great way to utilize culturally responsive teaching in an ELA classroom, because music is their passion. So let's talk about, the standards of prose, but within a realm that they connect to. As far as the second question goes. I think there's a lot of other areas for data that you can collect from. Certainly grades is one, but making sure that you disaggregate the grades in a multitude of ways. So not necessarily who's failing and who's not failing, but by what margin are they failing? When are their impacts being felt the most? Was it in certain times of the year because students have different stressors at home during holiday seasons and things like that? So looking at it in a more expansive way. Also, you can look at behavioral data. Behavioral data is a great way to see if equitable practices are being met within the classroom in terms of who is being referred for behavioral concerns. And then attendance data is a really great way to look at making sure that students are equitably being served, which is part of the reason why MTSS is so integral, because MTSS also addresses needs for students who are struggling with their attendance patterns. You can also look at culture and climate surveys. So you can survey the staff, you can survey students, you can survey families. And then I also think that there's just a lot of value in more informal feedback. You know, if families are struggling with their students' needs not being met, they will tell you. And that's real data for them. You know, it's not necessarily quantitative, but it is qualitative data. So I think that you have to take all of that together and kind of build the picture, and then you can kind of evaluate the picture as a whole when you have all of that together. I'm sure I'm forgetting other sources of data, but there's a lot of ways to kind of look at the purview of the school as a whole, not just grades.
Very comprehensive.
Thank you.
Don't forget to talk about your restorative work.
And my restorative work.
It's your wheelhouse.
Yeah, so restorative work, threw me for a loop there. Restorative work, do you want me to talk about it? Yeah. I think it's important to understand that restorative work is about building community and allowing students to develop the skills that they didn't necessarily have a chance to develop given their prior experiences. I always try to relate it back to something that is much more tangible for us. So if you think about reading, right? If a student struggles with reading, you have to offer them supports that allow them to bridge those gaps in a faster way so that they can get into a more comparable level with their peers. The same goes for coping mechanisms, social emotional learning. Like in terms of overcoming difficulties, anything like that, that's a skill. And some of our students, unfortunately, come to us without having experiences that allow them to develop those skills. So when we do the restorative practices, we're really taking into consideration that student's experiences and offering them a chance to develop those skills that they might not otherwise have. That being said, things are progressive as well. You know, after a certain point, if you've had a multitude of meetings and you've given a lot of opportunities and you've involved the community, then there are other options of things that you can do. But for us, it's really about restoring your status with your community. You are a part of this community and you have somehow damaged your relationship with that community. How can you rebuild yourself using these new skills that we're having conversations with you about to build yourself back up into good standing with the community? So.
That was the best description.
So I don't need to say all of that again, but I mean, I think ditto. So I think there's a piece of what Mr. Wick was talking about, which is the precursor to what your question was regarding behavior, and especially at the high school level. I think the important piece of this is balance. You know, you always try to change behavior. When you have a student who is showing maladaptive behaviors, the whole goal is to fix that problem and not have those recurring. So you have to look at all of the different tools that you have in your box. You obviously want them to restore the environment. You want them to be a part of your community, but if they've made some poor choices, which some adolescents do, at times.
Crazy, I know.
Right. We need to help them understand that, A, that has crossed the line and that has been a violation of the community norm, but then also give them the tools through the restorative lens to fix that approach. Sometimes that also does mean that they have consequences. So I think a lot of people have heard, and certainly in the media have heard, restorative practices equals no consequences. That's simply not true. That's not what our consultant, Joe Brummer, will tell you either. It's, did the consequences necessarily match the behavior, and did it change the socially maladaptive behavior that they're experiencing? if you continue to consequence behaviors that don't change, you have not solved the problem. And that's really what behavior management is about solving the problems. So you have a community that respects each other and is socially appropriate and is thriving. That's our whole goal. So for one student, it might be a consequence that works. For another student, it might be restorative. And I think the team at the high school, very much like the team at the middle school, is about finding what works for that student to make them have positive behaviors that allow them to be successful adults. That's our whole goal. So it really is when you have to get to know students and know what they need. So it's also more arduous, but it's also much more rewarding.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other board members? Jim?
Thank you so much for all of your work, and I think I'll echo Bobby's words. It's very exciting to see the collaborative work between the junior high and the high school, so thank you for doing that. I mean, I see a lot of positive things. For instance, just the transition from the junior high to the high school. It could have just been some slides, but it was slides and folks with clubs and people taking the new students around to all the different areas of the high school. So I think things like that are very much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, any further comment? Yes.
I do. Well, first I'd say thank you, especially for these curriculum changes. I know that it's very informative to me being a part of these curriculums and going through them. I can see which practices are being used currently in the classes that I'm taking. I did have a question on both the high school and middle school levels. How's the MTSS intervention, how's it being communicated to parents? At what stage is it being communicated to the parents, whether that be at the academic intervention or the attendance? Where does that start?
Restorative practice needs to be done.
Technically, I guess I should go after you because of my last name. That's typically my role. That's a great question, Ryan. So we're really in the infantry stage of this. MTSS is a passion of mine. I'm currently getting a master's in special education because I feel like it's such a need for our students, especially coming out of the pandemic, that we just need to do more. And I need to make sure that I understand that part. So that's part of the work that I also started before I left the high school, is really thinking about how do we encompass everything. So the matter of the fact is, it takes a village to help our students. So we always have to be in communication. So that's what we're trying to do right now, is establish what tools do we have where we can really get out some of that communication. So first and foremost is identifying that there is a problem. So let's take attendance, for example. How do we kind of automate that for a little bit while using our Power School program? There's certainly so many ways. Power School is great. It could do a lot for us. So how can I help, like my attendance clerk, get to a point where she sees a student with the number of absences and or tardies to say, okay, I'd have to at least generate this letter home so we can communicate, in case you didn't know, because sometimes this happens, right? How is Thanksgiving already this week? I don't even know. How did I already accumulate 12 absences? Like, how is it only November? So we just need to also let them know this is what's happening. Reach out to us. We're here. Do you need assistance? First notifying them of that. In terms of the other aspects of it, once a student is brought forward to the MTS team, it's really important to make that connection at home too. What are you seeing at home? Kind of do a little bit of an interview. Are you seeing the same things? Because we have to work together. So we have to identify that we've seen some of these things happen, and then we have to reach out to say, what are you seeing? And then talk about what are those next steps together in order to make sure that we're doing the same things in sync.
So just as Mrs. Yesko said, we are working on making some of those things automated, but when we actually have a student who is actively involved in MTSS, Ryan, that would be the school counselor and or interventionist who would reach out to them and let them know that there was a concern. Obviously, that's what we do first. Because ours is accredited class, it's actually a schedule change. And so our students would automatically know that, but we would be communicating with parents through their school counselor and or the interventionist, depending on it. But we would never have a student in intervention without necessarily that parent contact. But for us, a little different than SDMS, it is a accredited class, and so you'd be scheduled right into Mrs. Cumnick's room, or you'd be scheduled right into Mrs. Fitzgerald's room with a reading intervention.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. No other comments from board members? I just want to wrap it up and let you guys go home, because you have to get back in that classroom tomorrow for a half a day. First of all, I want to thank you all. Your commitment and your dedication to our district and to the children are phenomenal. It's a great thing to have you here. It's exciting. Just to follow up on the last question, I think we need to tell our story a little bit more. I think that's what we are lacking. So somewhere in your mission, continue to tell the story. We have so many good things going on in Wethersfield. And, I think the fact of reaching out to the parents and the tasks that you have, just making it, happen. It's not an easy thing to do, but I want to just thank you all for what you do. Thank you. Have a good Thanksgiving.
I did remember you. I do remember you. Don't think I forgot. Yeah, 8th grade math, right?
Hey, you know something? I love Brian saying something. That was great.
Yeah, you're from Plainville, right?
Well, while the
I
crowd
remember.
is going,
Basketball.
we'll get right on to
No,
our...
I remember. Yep, nice to see you. Very nice to see you. Nice to see you as well. Yep.
She's not going to adjust the transcript, don't worry.
I can't believe she remembered me.
So Board of Education meetings held on 11/9/2022. The Board of Education had a wonderful retreat at the Stillman Building. So it wasn't...
Not in the Berkshires.
Not in the Berkshires, not anywhere special, in the basement of the Stillman Building.
Didn't even get
It was
t-shirts.
a wonderful retreat. We invited and came together with the team of administrators of each building, and I think we've started a great accomplishment of something new. So Sally had sent out to us some questions. We have a timeline to finish, and if you haven't responded, please do so. Okay. We had our WEC meeting, and I'll refer that to Bobby.
Okay, WEC is our Wethersfield Early Childhood Collaborative, and we had a meeting on Monday, November 14th, and it was an in-person meeting. The mission of WEC is that all Wethersfield children birth to 8 are healthy, developmentally successful learners, and connected to the community. Jim Welch, the director of WEC, spoke of completing the continuous quality improvement training with the local early childhood collaboratives on SMART goals. He spoke of the PEP, People Empowering People, having their 2022 reunion of all graduates at the Keenan Memorial Center. Jim also talked of the preparations for holidays on Main and the Breakfast with Santa. These two events are a wonderful way to advertise the work of WEC and to communicate the importance of pre-K to our residents. WEC was part of the BIPOC Community Fair and Family Learning ESL program celebrations. And the agenda item was a time to brainstorm the WEC priorities for 2023. Most discussions centered on the importance of preschool for our youngest citizens. And this meeting is a collaborative of town organizations such as the YMCA, Children's Library, the Rainbow Center on Garden Street, TLC Preschool, Social and Senior Services, the Hospital for Special Care in New Britain with Adaptive Sports Program, our own Park and Rec, and the Wethersfield Public Schools. Please use any of their websites for more details on all their services and programs. Thank you.
Okay, so then we did have I think a great meeting of information. Facilities and Maintenance Committee met on November 14th, 2022. In attendance, and I don't know if anyone's had the privilege, we had a public member. But besides that, we had committee members. Myself, Bobby, Janice. We also had Sally Katz present.
By phone.
What's that?
By phone, right?
By phone. We had our superintendent, Amanda, Matt, Jim. So we had a house full of committee members as well as board members to hear what was happening. So the agenda pretty much discussed the school maintenance plan. So what we as a committee had recommended, since the town cares for our buildings, and that occurred, I believe, back in 2018, and so we had requested through Sally Katz that the town come up with a facilities maintenance plan for all our schools. And so that was one of the takeaways that we had asked Sally to work on with the town manager. Not only for the schools, but for the Stillman building and any facility that is housing the Board of Ed. We also discussed the HVAC grant status. I know the superintendent of schools met with the town manager and the town facilities regarding the HVAC grant, which was coming to the community, and we had a deadline of December 1st. We felt it would have been a great idea that the town take the next steps to apply for the HVAC grant, which would have had, would be meant that the town would have to be matching grants towards that. To this date, we have not heard back where we're going with that at this juncture. I know there's been lots of communication with the town and the board, but as a board member and chair of the committee, I've not heard anything, unless our superintendent can come forward with that. We also discussed capital improvement priorities. The town comes forward with the capital improvement program, and we receive less than 2% of what comes on the table, which in dollar amount is anywhere from $60,000 to $75,000 to fix our buildings and the cost. So with that being said, some of the priorities that are coming forward this year, we're looking at replacement of carpeting, we're looking at windows, we're looking at HVAC systems, replacement of flooring, we're looking at repairs and maintenance of sidewalks and paving and a whole host of things that need to be taken care of with that amount of money. So those are just some of the items that were discussed. But I think most importantly, at our meeting, the takeaway, and committee members and board members that were present, was the post-referendum grant application status. The superintendent shared with you today that he had to submit a letter to the state indicating that the referendum did not pass. With that being said, Wethersfield was not placed on a priority list for schools for renovation. So we're basically, once again, at ground zero for our schools. And so we're looking at next steps. So some of the next steps with the Board of Ed and the committee that brought forward with the referendum is that we need to bring the town into it. We need to bring them into the discussion, since they're the ones that are going to be either making or breaking it for our community. Not only that, but we've asked the superintendent to reach out to Collier to find out if they can come back and share with us some ideas for next steps for the schools in the district. Unfortunately, with that comes a price tag. People don't come here to do work for nothing, so we're waiting to find out whether or not Collier will come back and talk with us for free, or will look at us with a cost. So we're waiting to find out where that is going to come up. The good news with that is that we have updated our enrollment study. We are looking to fulfill and maintain positive energy to move forward with some type of renovation and fixing. And just one little bit of fact, back in 2018, just to maintain our buildings, all 5 of our buildings, just to give them a facelift, at that time was approximately $31 million. We're looking at that now, and we're guessing, just to maintain your building and not do anything extra to it, to give them a little spice, a little energy, a little facelift, we're looking at probably about $60 to $70 million. That's inflation. That's where we're going. But I think what we have to do is look at what we want to be, what the future is going to be for our Wethersfield schools. So a plan has to be brought to the table. A plan has to begin with the discussion. And I think we're going to hopefully begin that soon. I know a letter went out today to individuals on shared services and facilities to find out what we can do to get a meeting together with the town to see where we're going to go. It's a priority. It's something that we really have to look at. So quite a few takeaways. Any other committee members want to, chime in or talk or say anything that we discussed? Board members?
No, I think you got it.
You hit it. Our concern is, I think, the maintenance. We have to have a maintenance plan for our schools, but to see what's out there, see what's going on, what we've done, what needs to be done. We keep pushing things back. We have things that haven't been done because we're trying to play catch-up. The catch-up is caught up. So I think that's where we have to be right now. So that's it. So we got to keep a positive attitude. It's anything we do from this point on is going to cost money. So just keep that in mind. Nothing is free. Inflation is there, and we're trying to be responsible, but yet we have to be practical. So, okay.
Thank you.
Students, Programs, and Services Committee, 11:15.
Yes, I'll be brief. We, aside from the science curriculum, which we just approved earlier in this evening, we had a couple other briefings on the web preschool partnership update. They're doing some more, trying to expand that program with some additions and renovations to the playground. We got a very comprehensive update on the growth of our LEAP program, which when we started out in 2018, was it? We had 3 or 4 students, now we're up to 40. And it's actually, that's the sort of, and correct me, it is an optimum capacity right now, supposedly. Is that a correct assessment, Sally? But it's doing some great work, obviously, with a key component of our student population. And there was literally everybody in the program was there to give a very comprehensive update. And then the other quick one, we're engaged now in a sort of implementing or testing 2 math modules, instruction modules in our school system. Both of those, which names escapes me, not important, but the feedback from the teachers that were there, that they were both extremely functional and they're very excited about it, getting kids interested more in math on some of the issues that were talked about earlier today. Obviously a key component of our educational promise to our kids. And then, of course, the science explanation. So that was the gist of the meeting. Other board members were there, too, if they'd like to comment.
Thank you, Chris. CREC Council.
Okay. So the CREC Council met on Wednesday, November 16th, and the CREC Council is the Capital Region Education Council, of which Wethersfield's a member, along with 35 other surrounding towns. And the council is responsible for the regional magnet schools and Project Choice, and they've also organized and are working the Hartford Head Start. The meeting began with a presentation on an agreement to establish a cooperative agreement. This agreement will allow the regional groups to implement more innovation with a safety net for cash flow. The council heard reports from the Finance Committee and the Head Start Group. The council voted unanimously on the consent agenda concerning budget changes as CREC received monies from grants. Executive Director Greg Florio gave a report on administrative and teacher contract negotiations, and he was very upbeat on successfully working with both groups. Greg reported on CREC high school seniors going to a college fair where many schools of higher ed were represented. He reported that some students were given acceptances at the very event. There was also info that the CREC transportation was short 80 bus drivers, and we know the chaos that creates. CREC Chair Lydia Tadone spoke of the CABE conference coming up, and she continues to work with council members on committee work. Legislative report was by Patrice McCarthy, who spoke of Senate leaders organizing for committee chairs. She also spoke of the importance of communicating with each town legislators on important educational issues. And the final agenda, which was the second in 2 months, was the council members sharing info on utilizing alternate energy in their town and school district. Also discussion and the results by those who have already implemented alternate energies. A valuable sharing of info for our Hartford region. Thank you.
Policy and Planning, 1121. Jim?
The Policy and Planning Committee met yesterday at a little after 6 o'clock. In attendance was Mike Emmett, Dr. Reagan Lefebvre, and Matt Lacavoli, and myself. I won't go through the entire book here of changes of 300 pages. In general, we're talking about the new policies that were revised by the attorneys Shipman and Goodman, and most of those changes come down from the state. And we went through policies through October of 2022. So, a couple of things we discussed was a new, exertion policy, and we kind of got into a discussion. Michael was pointing out who that would impact, mainly the band and the football team, and who would respond and what their training was. So we discussed things like that. There were some meal changes, some references to gender changes. And also, I think the one thing that the committee wanted to change was to use the optional language included in Series 6000 advanced course programs where it discussed eligibility. And I think I'll just read that one sentence. And it talked about as determined by evidence-based indicators of how a student will perform, as well as the district administration identifying and publicizing additional criteria prior to the commencement of the academic term. So I think we're favoring a little more leeway as to who might attend those classes. We also decided that we would have meetings every quarter. I think it's been a while since we've had a meeting. And comments can be submitted by the committee and will be included in the December 13th board meeting for a first review by the board, and then it'll be finalized at the next subsequent meeting. Does anybody else have anything to add?
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
It sounded like an exciting meeting.
Oh, it was.
You missed a good time.
Amanda.
Almost exciting as the Finance and Operations Committee meeting. So we had that this evening, just a few short hours ago. We are squeaking under budget. We're like right there. There's been an increase in transportation costs and an increase in the enrollment in Learn and CREC magnet schools. And CREC actually increased their tuition by 17 to 19%, which has created an issue for our budget, since that's not what we were planning. And then we got to start talking generally in regards to the upcoming budget season. We started discussing some of the issues that we are going to be looking at. We've got a lot of, the ESSER funds are coming to an end. What are we going to do, with math interventionists? The insurance and benefits line never goes down for us. Ever. What are we going to do? So it was a good discussion to open it up, and I look forward to the next couple months.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, so meetings that are scheduled, CREC 12/21/22 at 11:30. Do we have any unfinished business to come before us? Public comment, 5 minutes. Going once, twice. No more public comment. Board comment. Janice.
Hi, I really enjoyed going to Our Town on Veterans Day weekend. Ryan did a fantastic job, as did several faculty members, too. It really embodied the whole meaning of Our Town to have it open up to more than just the students. But the students did a wonderful job. We enjoyed it thoroughly, and we're looking forward to the spring production, which will be The Little Mermaid. So that will be very exciting. So we really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Matt?
So pretty much everything that I was going to say has already been stolen from Janice, John, and Michael. I wanted to touch on the referendum just briefly, but Michael and John have already done that. Our superintendent, Emmett, has already done that. I just want to say that these schools do need work. The vote wasn't particularly close on the yes/no vote on the referendum, and to the residents of town, we heard you. We're picking up the pieces, we're doing our post-mortem, and we're going to do everything within our power to bring something to the voters that is more palatable. And we're going to do a better job of communicating, both in terms of what these schools need and what our intentions and our thoughts are. So that is definitely on our plate. I would say it's the biggest piece of turkey on the plate right now at the moment, but we're going to work on it. And I also wanted to give a shout out to our very own, the board's very own Ryan Fazina, who played an excellent Mr. Webb, I believe it was, in the school play of Our Town. I attended with my in-laws, and all three of us enjoyed it immensely.
Thank you, Matt. Jim?
I just wanted to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Amanda?
I just wanted to say congratulations to the youth football. They had their banquet last night, and the Team C, which my daughter's a cheerleader for, but whatever, they actually are the Nutmeg Steak champions. They beat Granby 21-19 on a bitterly cold day. I was even in a Snuggie, and it still wasn't warm enough. So they had their banquet. That's basically like third and fourth graders. The fifth through sixth graders, they also were in the championship. They unfortunately didn't make it, but they had a great run. I believe that they were 7-1, and the championship was their only loss. So I just wanted to say congratulations. We've got a great group of kids coming up, and they're tough, and they're ready to go on for next year. So thank you.
Awesome. Bobby?
It's our farm team for the future. Well, I have some close remarks about groups that are very supportive of the Wethersfield Public School, and of course, one is Keen for Kids. And we met on a Zoom meeting Thursday, November 3rd. And this group also works with the library, social services, park and rec, and the school system. Caroline Fazina reported that our after-school program is up and running for the 2023 school year. They're approaching the end of the fall season, which had 666 enrollments, 390 individual enrollments, with 19 of the 45 classes reached maximum enrollment or numbers that had gone over. The session included some great new programs such as sports and games, nature kids, arts and crafts, and jewelry making, as well as all the usual much-loved ones. Our students continue to participate with much excitement and are learning new skills and having fun with their peers, all while being supported by caring adults, says Caroline. Registration for the next session of Keen After Kids will open January 4th, and online brochure will be available mid-December. Judy Keene did report that she has a great deal of frustration with working with the Department of Education on a $300,000 grant. They're trying to go forward, the Keen for Kids is trying to go forward with enhanced programs, but if the grant is not approved, there is a chance that we may not be reimbursed. So, as she said, the challenges of working for ARPA funds. Also, the Hunger Action Team met on a Zoom meeting on Monday, November 7th. Anna Griffin and Eileen Candles reported that Wethersfield High School Let's Tackle Hunger food drive recently resulted in the filling of a police cruiser with food for our food bank, as well as $218. Wethersfield High's Interactive Club will also have the February drive for hygiene products. Dazzling Dozen program will start again in January, and always looking for groups to own and work a month for food collection. There is an agreement in our HAT group to work independently as a town organization and hopefully to join with the high school and the middle school groups. The Wethersfield Farmers Market is also asking for assistance from the state to fund an outreach program to all SNAP-eligible residents of Wethersfield. There are 1,818 SNAP-eligible residents in Wethersfield. So please check the HAT Facebook page for more info. And also, I want to give a shout out to that Wethersfield High School group of thespians and their producer. That was a great and very challenging play that you people put on. Just your composure up there. I told you when you took your jacket off, Ryan, I was amazed. You look so normal on a stage. And also, there was another very impressive performance by the high school band and the choraleers at the town ceremony for the veterans. A day to honor our own veterans and all those who gave services in the armed forces. And finally, a very happy Thanksgiving to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Jennifer.
Thank you. I did just want to echo some of Matt's comments about the referendum. It is indeed the biggest piece of turkey on the plate. It's really important, and I didn't want to not say something about that. Particularly, I want to thank all the parents who mobilized and who mobilized other parents and voters on Election Day and in the weeks leading up to the election, both the parents who were behind Say Yes to Invest, of which I was personally supporting, and also the parents who were leading the Vote No to Save Charles Wright. I respect their activism as well, even though I took a different view myself. It's so important that we get families involved in these next steps and help them to understand what's at stake here. I've talked to a lot of people who are devastated. They're saying, my kids are little, they're coming up in these schools, are they going to fall apart before my kids get there? They're really concerned. When I hear from teachers, like the presentation tonight, I am so struck every time by the enormous amount of pride that Wethersfield teachers and administrators take in their schools. And I really want the whole Wethersfield community to take a similar pride in our schools. We need to invest more in education. I know that our schools are already a huge part of the town budget, and with good reason. We talk about things like how schools affect our property values and so on, but this is our community. Our Wethersfield graduates are going to be your doctor, your lawyer, your home health aide, your next door neighbor. We want people to be educated, we want them to be good citizens, and this all starts with our elementary education. We've got to invest in these schools. I think another piece of information that came out of the facilities meeting, which I wasn't able to attend, is how little Wethersfield spends per pupil compared to many of our surrounding towns, many of our peer group. It's actually very, very low. So we need to step it up. These schools need our investment, and our community deserves good schools, and we just don't have great buildings right now. So, I don't want to end on a negative note. We have so much to be thankful for with our schools. It's a great week to remember that, and I really appreciated Sally Destoli's message thanking our whole Wethersfield community. So I'd like to do that too, and hopefully this time next year, maybe we'll be thankful that we have a plan in place to renovate all those schools. Thanks.
Ryan?
I'm going to run through these super quick, so try to keep up. I'd like to offer a huge thank you to Ms. Nemec, who was here tonight, who also helped put on the wonderful Wethersfield ceremony for Veterans Day. Without her work, the celebration would not have been successful nearly to the degree. Another thank you, as was said before, to the WHS choraleers and band members for their wonderful performances. Our town was already spoken about, and I'll stop gushing as well. If somebody could pop my ego later tonight, that'd be amazing. But through the month's preparation, incredibly exciting field trips, and outreach that we've had within the school and outside of it, we put on an amazing performance. More information will come as time goes on about the spring performance of The Little Mermaid, and I encourage all who can to attend. We had visits from NESAC, the New England Secondary Schools and College visit. We upheld all the core values through the help of our administration, student body, and staff. That was incredibly successful, and I'm sure everyone can appreciate everything that has been put towards showing our school in that positive light. Congratulations to Ms. Coco, another member of the WHS staff. She was celebrated amongst other educators across the state and named one of our Teachers of the Year within the district. She teaches various technology and engineering courses at WHS, but is best known for her Blue Eagle News productions and contributions to our after-school programs in that way. School counseling has done a magnificent job alongside our administrators and staff to help our seniors and some rising seniors on applying through the Common App program for any colleges that they may be interested in. There's been events after lunch and during lunch where that have been scheduled for students to reach out and ask for help in that regard. Thank you again for all the congratulations and warm words.
Ryan, what are you going to do in your free time?
Gosh, I have plenty of AP classes to get to. Ms. Nemec is making sure that that schedule is full, so.
Full plate. Well, thank you for all you do at the high school, and you're doing a great job as a representative, giving us the information.
John, can I?
Yep.
Real quick. You know, I was not, as they say, going to say anything, but about the school referendum. You know, when I first ran for the board, one of the reasons I ran was because I thought we need to do something about the condition of our elementary schools. And Wethersfield's not unique in the fact that many school districts around the state skimp on the maintenance because the thing hasn't fallen down yet, so we put it off. And then the day comes where we end up replacing a boiler when we don't have to, and that it will gladly outlive any building we build around it. And we can go on and on like this all day and all night. But the simple fact is this. We have a town that is heavily reliant on property taxes of residential homes. We do not have the wealth of commercial and industrial taxation base that many towns have. So it falls directly on the taxpayer, the homeowner. Many homeowners in this town have paid their mortgages. They literally go down to the tax office and write a check twice a year. Others pay through their mortgage and accounts as well. So it's a mixture of sticker shock. You know, when you ask a town this size to spend $250 million, it's a lot of money. No matter how much they think schools we should have, and they probably agree with that, they look at that and they say it's a lot of money. And it's a horrible place to put a voter in who they want to do the right thing. You know, their kids may have a school, but they have people like my neighborhood. I've got kids in your neighborhood. They're all young. You could look at them now. They're in preschool or they're running around on the weekends. They're going to be in the elementary schools in a couple of years. And what kind of schools are we going to have for them? Are we going to have schools that are putting duct tape and bubble gum and baling wire around and looking for loose parts and looking for, I mean, you know, that's no way to run a railroad. But I think what we have to do is be realistic and cross the aisle here and look at this the way we do this a little differently than one big enchilada, because I don't think we'll be successful. And the more you string this out, it's just going to get more expensive. A lot of these expenses have got nothing to do with the people that we've hired to make these schematics and these drawings. These are all handed down. And Mike, you can cut me off if I'm wrong, but the state sets these guidelines, and they make it very expensive, and they have other, let's just say, regulations that add to the cost of building public buildings in this state. It's a phenomenon. It's the reality. You add the inflation, you add fuel costs, it's going to be more expensive when we go back again. So, you know, I'm more than eager to work with anybody who wants on this, including the town council, to say, look, let's look at how we can get there. It may not be getting there as fast as we want, but if we can get there in incremental steps and show the public that we can take the money, we can implement it, we can fix these schools, gain confidence, I think we'll get there. But it's a lot for a voter to consume in a very short period of time about this kind of investment. It's a lot of money, and I think we owe it to everyone to try to explain that in ways without saying, if you don't like the school, if you don't vote for it, you don't support education. I don't think that's really the case. I just think when you look at $250 million in a town this size, people can make the calculation in their head what that's going to cost them. And for a lot of people, it's a prohibitive cost, even if they have kids in the school districts. I'm sure their parents who have kids in the school districts that would have been affected by it probably may have opposed it for that reason. So let's, I'm open to any discussion, but I think, look, we know what we have to do, and we just have to turn around and figure out how we're going to market it, how we're going to explain it, and what's the best path, whether we're going to come right back next spring or wherever and try the same thing again. But I think we have to be very open to different ideas and to work with people in this community, Democrats, Republicans, who know how to run campaigns, to do that, to use those skills. I'm more than happy to volunteer my efforts in that way. If it kills me saying it, work with Democrats on an election, I think I can make myself say that, but I can't. But no, I will, because it's necessary. It's not a partisan thing, but you need to use political, I think, common sense to get this thing passed. And I think we need to look at, and not just be vainglorious about the need to do it because the need to do it. We have to be, I think, realistic in our approach.
Thank you, Chris. Any other comments from board members? Okay. I just want to end the meeting by saying that on Sunday, November 13th, Bobby, Chuck, myself, and Mike Emmett had the great opportunity to spend over an hour on the Zoom, Google Meet with NEAC's committee. Very informative. I think we represented Wethersfield in the Board of Ed and the Wethersfield High School, I think, in a real positive light with our questions and our answers. And basically, there was nothing to hold back. We told the truth, and nothing but the truth about our schools. Mm-hmm. And they were impressed what we had to say, good, bad, indifferent, but they can see for themselves. We got a great community, we got great drive, and we're going to keep the positive energy going. And with that, before I turn it over to our superintendent for if he has any additional comments, we're very grateful to be in Wethersfield. I'm grateful to be here, and I wish everyone and their families a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Cassio. Just want to say with regard to the NEASC visit, we expect that we'll have the NEASC report delivered to the district sometime in January. At that point in time, we will do a presentation before the board talking about next steps. Obviously, this NEASC report will be perfectly timed because we've just had our board retreat where we're focusing on looking at strategic plan, vision, and mission. We've updated school improvement plans, which you've seen over the past 2 board meetings, as well as our data presentation and district improvement plan. So as budget season rolls upon us, Amanda talked about that, some of the recommendations within that NEASC report, we expect to be able to integrate within our budget request for the next fiscal year. Do want to just say heartfelt thank you to our leadership teams at Silas, Deane Middle School, as well as Wethersfield High School. One of the things I heard loud and clear when we were doing the search for the principal at Wethersfield High School and talking with the student group, we talk about student voices. And one of the students in the focus group talked about needing to recapture the spirit that was lost during COVID. And to see what goes on, you saw Eagle Crew tonight. At that Veterans Day ceremony, the Eagle Crew was front and center, supporting our veterans, and assisting with traffic, doing anything that needed to be done. I'm extraordinarily proud and thankful of our students, of our staff, and our administration at our schools. I'm very proud to be part of this district and proud to be your superintendent. And with that, I'd like to wish everybody in the Wethersfield community a very happy, safe, and healthy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Wow.
I gotta go pee
Let
for
me
a
hold
babysitter.
off. What's the next thing I have to do?
Say all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Opposed, abstentions?